Sup everyone, so we are back now with the SJs Low Key Suck video. This should be the video that pretty much ends off the series of the Low Key Suck MBTI types, which is pretty much brutally honest, constructive, humorous criticism type of series that I created. And after this, then I'm going to start the High Key Rock series, pretty much starting with the NFs and the SPs and the NTs and the SJs. And just like I did in the NTs video, I want to put some disclaimers because I put the most disclaimers in the NT video, and for whatever reason, which I'm pretty sure it's because they just probably skipped over that part because they're like, oh yeah, I'm an NT, I don't have feelings, I'm not gonna get offended. They got the most offended out of all of the other videos I've made so far. But there's also been a lot of you guys, a lot of NTs who have commented after I put yet another disclaimer, a list of disclaimers and contents, and a lot of them are now like, oh, this is actually funny. They're able to see the humor in it now and everything. So my disclaimer for this video is that I value all types. This is just humorous, constructive criticism. This is just me being brutally honest about every type, including my own, which I did in the NF's Low Key Suck video. And if the shoe doesn't fit, you don't have to squeeze yourself into it. You don't have to yell about the shoe and be like, oh, y'all need to get me a better size. It's all right, okay? This is generally speaking. And of course, if anything, a lot of these may have to do more with the unhealthy types or those who are less developed, pretty much. Don't get offended. It's not that serious. So, without further ado, I'm going to start. The ISTJ. So I'm going to try and avoid personal bias because although I've met several, a handful that I actually do get along pretty well with, despite, maybe it's probably because we don't talk all that often, I've met so many that really rubbed me wrong from seeing, other ENFJs speak about it and, just pretty much like socionics, like everywhere that I've been looking, ISTJs and ENFJs are pretty much the most conflicting, ISTJs are the most conflicting types with the ENFJ, pretty much. And I found that out even before I knew about MBTI. Like, oh, look at this pattern. All of you guys tend to be ISTJs. But all of that to say, once again, I'm just putting more disclaimers. I am going to try and not be so brutal with them and just speak from a neutral, blatantly honest standpoint from my own experience. So I called the ISTJs, the nickname I gave for them for this series is the cold worker bots. And this is because they're basically emotionless. ISTJs, for whatever reason, generally speaking, once again, they seem to just have an apathetic, I don't really care about anything but my work and what I actually have to do type of attitude. They suck at tact. Like they don't understand tone. They don't understand inflection of voices, all of that. Oh man, some of you are just coming to mind, and it's not intentional majority of the time, hopefully, but for whatever reason, that's just how they talk. It's not easy for them to be like, hey, do you mind passing me the butter? It has to be an order of some type of authority. Pass me the butter. And something like that, or they can't even inquire without trying to seeming as if they're trying to make you feel stupid in some way, shape, or form. ISTJs hate being wrong, and I genuinely don't know if they actually believe or they know that they are wrong and they just don't want to admit it, or they genuinely cannot see a perspective aside from their own as being right. But if it is the latter, it would make sense, I guess, because they have SI as a dominant function, which pretty much goes by my experiences, my impressions, and then they have TE and FI working together, which is pretty much like, oh, this is how I feel about something, which is their tertiary FI, and then TE is like, let's go ahead and execute how you feel about it, pretty much, and it's just like, okay, very one-sided, and it's so annoying, especially being an NI user. But once again, like I said, we're going to try and not make this so personal. But pretty much, if you're interacting with an ISTJ, literally, this is my tip to you. Just get used to saying, you're right. Even if they just rephrase what you said after telling you that you were wrong. Just be like, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. Because they want to one-up you. They want to be at the top. They cannot stand feeling incompetent, being incompetent, any of that. So you have to, and they're not going to meet you more than halfway. You'll be lucky if they even attempt to meet you about 40% of the way. Because, yeah, they just see things like as them always being right, and that's pretty much the way it goes. And if they're kind of like what I said about the INFP, where they victimize themselves, and it makes sense because they share the same type of functions. They share the same functions as the INFP, and so yeah, they have a lot of similarities in that way, where it's like, no, it's always your fault, and I'm the victim, and on top of that, I'm more cerebral. I see things from the proper perspective. You're wrong. And like I said, just get used to saying you're right when you're around them. The ISTJs also seem to be like the least interested in MBTI, unless if it has to do with them finding a partner. I guess because they have NE as an inferior function, they can't really pick up on all of the different like connections, but they pretty much like when they see an application, TE, which is, ooh, I can use this for my agenda to find me a partner, or maybe to help out in this business or whatever the case, then they're gonna actually try and like be like, okay, so tell me about this MBTI stuff. But they don't want to learn about everything pretty much, at least not originally. They just want to pretty much like know, hey, so who's my ideal type? Hey, so what type is this person, so that I can like try and like know a better way to outdo them. It's not really in an attempt to like understand people and meet them where they are, but more of just like to continue to further push their goal, or to further try and like infringe upon how they are right about everything, because once again, the ISTJ is always right. The last thing is that ISTJs also seem to pretty much only brag about their work in school. This is very annoying because they either intentionally or unintentionally bring other people down for it. Like me, for example, I'm not horrible at school. Like I'm not like, failing everything or whatever, but I definitely put some things oftentimes as like a priority, such as like my coaching, or things that I actually want to learn about, versus the Pythagorean theorem and stuff like that. And they can look down on you for such reasons. They can look down on other people in the classroom and be like, ugh, imbeciles, like I do all of my work. All I do is study. No, don't contact me right now. I'm studying, and it's like, okay, that's good that you're a cold, emotionless worker bot who just focuses on your classwork all day, every day, and you're just trying to climb up the academic ladder, but that does not make you any better than anyone else. But once again, if you disagree, you're right. Moving on. The ESTJ. The nickname that I've given this type is the abrasive workaholics. Because they are TE dominant, they pretty much get a high, like the ENTJ, off of checking things off of their list. Their whole life is pretty much a life of goals and accomplishments and one-ups once again, and they pretty much get that type of high of, like I said, checking things off of their list. They want to accomplish so much, and they do this in very abrasive manners oftentimes, because like the ISTJ, a lot of times they don't really know tact, but they have a kind of peculiar twist to it. The ISTJ is usually like very direct, straightforward, dry, no tact, all of that. But the ESTJ puts a twist on it where I guess it's due to tertiary NE. They try to make it seem like a joke. They don't know how to joke around with you without being abrasive, without, like hurting your feelings in some way, without like kind of like putting you down. Like these are the types of people that'll make jokes to make everyone laugh, and you'll probably go like, ouch. I knew an ESTJ one time. I actually worked with him back at Myrtle Beach when I was working as a maintenance worker in a hotel for a mission trip pretty much. And this ESTJ was so interesting to me because I quickly learned just how much, I always knew that they hated incompetence, but I learned just how much they really disdain it. They are the types that everything is just common sense to them. Same thing with the ISTJ, where everything's just like, this is just what it is. Why are you guys reading too deep into it? Like, how can you not do this? Or, are you serious? This is such a simple task. Just do it. And it's like, okay, let me explain something to you, all right? Not everybody can do the things that you do so easily, okay? Like, this may seem easy to you, but it's not easy to everyone else. And for that does not make you superior or anything. It just makes you a TE user and SI user for whatever reason, And that's all right. That's your God-given gift, but you don't need to, like, abuse it or, in a way make other people seem like they are less than you are for that reason. Pretty much what we had to do over at the missions trip or as the maintenance workers is that all of the refrigerators that we would replace, or the ACs that we'd replace, or the TVs that we'd fix, toilets that we plunged, all of that type of stuff, we had to like write it down, and then pretty much like at the end of the day we turned in all of the work that we did. And I worked with a few other people while I was there, when I was getting into the training and everything, but everybody knew this specific ESTJ. He was pretty much the hardest worker out of all of them, not because all the other ones were lazy, but because he had a whole broken leg or something, and he was still coming to work and still accomplishing more than everybody else was. And when I was with him, it was just interesting to see like the day when I spent with him as an ESTJ and the day that I spent with another guy named Donnie, an ISFP. The ESTJ, I believe his name was Max. I can't remember at the moment. But the ESTJ pretty much, he was, every time he like accomplished a task and he's like, all right, we gotta go. We have to like call in and be like, okay, what's next? And we have to like rush there. Like he did not like slow walking. He just got in and then he had to like do his work. He'd be friendly with the people, but like I said, abrasive jokes. Like, hey, so your AC broke down again, huh? Wow, I wonder how many times it's gonna do it. Like just those type of jokes. It's like, haha, thanks, but he fixed it. He did a great job. And then as soon as he was done, he would call in and try and like get to the next job. And by the end of the day, he had like about 2 sheets filled, while usually on average people would have like 1. That means that you're actually doing very well. But he had his whole 2 sheets filled up, and he tried to like maximize his lunch break and everything. So it's like, wow. While I was working with Donnie, the ISFP, then we would like go take our time, accomplish a task, and then he would sit down for about 5 to 8 minutes and be like, let's just chill before we call in for the next one. And I thought that was funny as a TE inferior. But yes, ESTJs do not like incompetence, whether it's coming from themselves, if they feel incompetent, or whether it's coming from you. And if you are being incompetent, they will call you out on it, and they will be abrasive about it. Sort of like the ISTJ, ESTJs have a very, very hard time, it seems, from seeing other people's perspective. The worst part about this is that they like to start debates with little to no attempt on seeing your perspective. Rather, they are pretty much trying to see if you have the right perspective. So they'll ask you a question like, hey, Denzel, so, what do you think about Donald Trump? It's like, well, I think that he's insert answer over here because this is not a really political thing, and they'll be like, okay, well, this is what I think. And even though they're saying this is what I think, what they're really doing is, that's cute. Let me give you the right answer. Because no matter what reasoning you're going to give, they are right, like the ISTJ, and you cannot prove them otherwise. These types are often called bulldozers as well because these are the types of people who often go, whoops, forgot to consider your feelings, and they just run over you. They are really good at making the tough call, but a lot of times they don't even consider like how it's going to affect the people around them, which is kind of like their abrasive jokes. Like they're making these jokes thinking like, oh, everyone's gonna laugh. And oftentimes people do, either due to fear or due to not trying to seem so sensitive and all of that. But a lot of times it's just like, bruh, are you serious? Like, that was unnecessary. Okay, so I just had to like switch rooms because a class came in. But we will continue now with the ESFJ. So the nickname that I gave for this type is the kind judgers. And if you don't already know what I mean about that, we will unravel that in a moment. The main thing that I actually have noticed about all the SJs, but this is most specifically with the ESFJ, is they like to ask a lot of sensible questions. Sensible as in, oh, hey, you found your phone? When your phone is literally right in your hand. Or, oh, so what are you eating? Bruh, why don't you look? Can you not see that I'm eating oatmeal? And ISFJs do this too. We're not there yet, but one time, or many times, my ISFJ grandmother, like when we'd come home, then she'd be like, oh, you guys are home? And then I would like tell a joke like, no, we're still outside. Like, come on, like, bruh, yes, we are home. You see that. So that's what I mean by like sensible questions. Like, I think a lot of times they just like to hear themselves talk. So speaking of liking to hear themselves talk, another annoying thing about them is that they're known as the gossipers, and I find this to be scarily accurate. I know an ENFP, my friend Jonathan, and he actually told me, and I quote one time, be careful of those who say you can tell me anything. Because pretty much that's how a lot of the ESFJs are. And when you're like, oh, you can tell me anything. I don't mind. I can keep like all of your secrets and stuff. A lot of times they don't intentionally mean to spill the beans, but it's like they can't help but go and tell and spread this information with other people. And so they always know everybody's tea. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Ebonic term tea, it's pretty much it's kind of like, knowing people's business. Like, everyone's rumors or, everyone's, the tea. Like, what? Gossip. You pretty much know what the word on the block is. Like, word on the street is so-and-so sleeping with so-and-so. Or, because ESFJs, being people-oriented, they just get all this information about everyone. So they know pretty much everything about you because they share information about you to get information about other people or to get even more information about you. So that's another problem, or it can be used as a problem oftentimes for those who are, usually less unhealthy. So the reason why I called them the kind judgers is because they are busybodies and they're really bossy, but they do it in a very kind, almost even facetious type of manner. I think of, what's her name? Smiler, I think, from the Emoji Movie, where she's like, oh, well, we're just going to have to kill you, and it's like, oh, why are you smiling, And I know that her name was Smiler, but then you look at, like, other ESFJs, like, even in Mean Girls, like, you look at Regina George, who, she was bossy, and, ESFJs are not always nice, but they have that nice exterior to them, like, and they just seem very, very facetious oftentimes due to their FE dominance. And ENFJs can definitely be seen as this too, but I bashed them in another video, so I'm not gonna really like go there. That's something about the ESFJ, and then on top of that, with all this information, like just like I said earlier, where they're like, you can tell me anything. They're judging you for whatever you're telling them. Like they're like, oh wow, but then in their mind, or oftentimes even like just outwardly, like, how can you do that? Like, what made you think that was okay? Or and it's like, whoa, you told me that I could talk to you about this, but now all of a sudden you're acting like this way, or you're literally like judging me. And it's like, okay, so am I to trust you? Are you actually nice, or are you someone that I should like stay away from and keep my business to myself about? That's for you to decide. They often sway from either having absolutely no opinion of their own because they're so involved with whatever the group is, or they're too rigidly involved with their own opinion that they had been raised and kept in their SI pretty much. Like, this is what's right, this is, stuff like that, and they won't like budge from it. Like, this is how I grew up just cause, and they don't always look for the meaning behind why they believe whatever they believe. And so this could be a problem because this often prohibits them from being able to look at other people's perspectives, to be able to grasp and to be able to accept other people's lifestyles. Because once again, and I think this is a trend just for all SJs in general, this is the way that's been tried and true, because all SJs share the same cognitive function of SI and NE, and SI is like their strongest perceiving function. So they are very, very in tune and married to the traditional, and not even necessarily the traditional, but pretty much like what is reliable, what has been often tried and true. And SJs make up majority of the population. And so therefore they overpower everyone else pretty much. And if they think that something is right and there's a whole bunch of other them that are saying like, yeah, I think this is right too, who are we really to like go in opposition to that? So if an ESFJ believes that this is how things are supposed to be, well, then good luck trying to dissuade them from that. Or you might actually have better luck because they're not as bad as the ESTJ or the ISTJ who has FI, since ESFJs and ISFJs have FE, so they kind of want to make everyone happy in a way, so they'll be willing to take more hits as opposed to like the more rigid STJ types. But it's still annoying even when they don't even know what exactly they want or what exactly they believe or why they believe whatever they believe. ESFJs are also incredibly detail-oriented, and this can come out in many ways. I know an ESFJ who literally, when she's telling you a story, she will tell you pretty much everything down to what the person was wearing, what happened in that moment, what she was thinking in that moment, and it's just like so many different rabbit trails, I guess, because the NE tertiary kind of like yanks them away for a moment, but then they come right back, and it's like you're giving me so much information, and what is the point of whatever you're trying to say? And that's the thing, like they just pack everything with so much detail that now you have all this information that you have to sort through in order to get, okay, so what you actually could have just said could have been truncated into like maybe 3 minutes, but instead this has went on for about 15 to 20 minutes talking about this guy and all of that, when really all the advice that you needed from me could have been just you providing this short amount of information, and I would have been able to use that for however benefit that would have been to you. And lastly, I see this a lot with ESFJ men, because they're FE dominant, then they kind of look at the social appearance of like how men are supposed to be, which as an ENFJ male I relate to that, but due to their experiences, since they're SI users, then they're less likely to like kind of adapt, and they'll more of like stick to however they grew up. So if they grew up believing like, oh, in order to be a man I have to bully other people, or I have to like do this, or I have to do that, then that's pretty much what they're gonna like stick to, and they usually don't sway from that. which could be very unfortunate. So if you know an ESFJ male especially, but a lot of ESFJ females as well, who believe like, oh, like they want to be at the hierarchy, like they want to be at the top of the hierarchy, kind of like Regina George again, also Sharpay from High School Musical, people like that. They're just very like I don't even know the word, like glamorous and kind of like the typical popular you're not cool enough to be around us, type of girls and guy, where it's just like they like the guys of course don't act like that, but they're kind of like, oh, this is how, like, I have to play basketball, or I have to, like, throw jokes at certain people in order to seem cool. So then they do that, and it's kind of like you're trying so hard to fit in, and it could be very annoying. And last but not least, the ISFJ. The nickname that I decided to give them was the two-faced underdogs. The reason why I gave them this nickname is because they often give an appearance of being very, very soft, kind of like the ISFP, but then at the same time they switch really quickly and become very, very critical and hard, kind of like an ESTJ or of some sort. And it's like, pick one, are you the victim or are you the antagonizer? A good example of this, and hopefully this isn't really like a spoiler, but spoiler alert, like for those of you who have seen Zootopia, the sheep from Zootopia, the one who actually ended up being the antagonist, she was the one who, she seemed like the victim throughout the whole entire movie until the end, and it's like, wait, what? You were behind all of this? And she was using her FE like she thought that this would make, everything better. She was trying to bring things back to former tradition. Like, no, I don't like how we've advanced in society and allowed predators and prey to become friends, even though that's kind of like harmonious. That she wanted to go back to the original tradition of predators being, separate from prey. And so she acted as a victim the whole entire time, and ended up actually being the master genius behind everything. And people don't expect this from the ISFJ because they are usually underdogs. It's like, oh, you're so cute. Like, you think that they like who are they really? But then they end up actually like saying slick things. I know an ISFJ who is pretty much the queen of shade, because not only does she know all of your business, but when she's actually in the mood and she doesn't feel as much of a connection to you anymore, she starts saying comments to you, and it's like, oh, so you've been thinking this about me the whole time, but now that we're not on that level of intimacy or closeness anymore, then you're just allowing yourself to be more critical of my behavior or what you like, how you perceive me and stuff like that. And so to me, that's two-faced, and because it's unexpected, it allows them to be the underdog, and it hurts a little bit more because it's like, oh, wow, didn't expect that from you. I think the most annoying thing about ISFJs is that they do things as if it's completely selfless. But then they get in a fit or guilt you about it if their services go pretty much unnoticed. I've actually seen this many times, like with my grandmother who's ISFJ. She'll be in the kitchen all day, every day, literally, and she'll just be like, oh, I'll be like, good morning, Grandma, how are you? She's like, oh, I'm fine, but just washing the dishes, and I have to cook, and now the kids are gonna be coming home in about 3 hours, so I can't go to sleep because I have to do this. And it's like, Grandma, go take a nap. It's all right. Oh, Denzel, how can I take a nap when I have all of this stuff to do? Woe is me. And it's like, are you serious? Just go take a nap. Like, what do you want me to say? Like, well, thank you for all of your slaving that we did not really ask for, and you're kind of overdoing. But yes, that's actually what they want you to say, pretty much. They want you to give them like so much praise and affirmation, and like, oh my goodness, thank you so much, what would I do without you, type of affirmation all the time. But at the same time, they act is if, and they fish for it. They act as if like they don't really want it. Because then you look at my mother, who's ISFJ, and she will be the first to be like, and this actually literally happened. I wanted to wait till after church to tell her Happy Mother's Day, but she called me like around 10 a.m. one time, like, so you didn't say Happy Mother's Day to me and stuff like that. I'm like, whoa, I haven't even got out of church yet, stuff like that. And she was really upset. And then later on, when I tried to give her a really good Happy Mother's Day and everything, then she didn't really want to hear it. And then one time on her birthday, I'm trying to like give her, when you do try to express appreciation to the ISFJ, then they're just all like, kind of like the ISTJ, like, I'm just doing my job. Oh, like they act as if like they don't really want you to like tell them like thank you or give them the appreciation. But then if you are like, okay, and you stop giving them appreciation, then they get mad and they start thinking that you're taking them for granted. And then you start seeing their two-faced underdog critical side come out, which you don't want to see. Speaking of guilting, they can also often act very depressed. I have so much schoolwork that I have to do, because they tend to be very studious, like the ISTJ. It seems like school makes up their life, which seems to be the case with a lot of SJs. I think this school is a very SJ type of thing. Like, their life, generally speaking, is school. I know in ESFJ, we're not really talking about them once again, but she like just study all day and all that. And plenty of ISFJs that I know are doing the same thing, like they just study, which isn't a bad thing, especially as long as they're not like, looking down on other people. But instead of looking down on other people, they try to make you feel bad for them, like, yeah, I have to study for nursing, and then I have to like do this, and I have to do that, and then they happen to sigh a lot too, like, but then they act like, everything's gonna be all right though. And then speaking of which, they have NE as an inferior, so they often happen to come up with a whole bunch of ideas and become paranoid of things that are just never gonna happen. One example would be my mother, who pretty much when we were going, we were traveling somewhere in Ghana, and kind of like Kim Kardashian, who I also believe is ISFJ, she just like packed a whole bunch of stuff in the car. Like she always like overpacks, and the reason why she does this is because she pretty much has to be prepared for anything. Like, oh well, what if this happens, or like what if this happens, or what if like we lose all of our food over here? At least we'll have more food over here. Like, what if this and blah blah blah. And it's like, Mom, none of this is gonna happen. Like, where are you even getting this stuff from? And this can be taken in even in other ways. Like a lot of ISFJs that I know, they can literally start to like freak out about things that are not going to happen in the future. Such as like, oh my gosh, well, what if, I can't even think of stuff right now because, first of all, I don't really use NE, but then second of all, it's just so unrealistic and so unlikely of the things that they become paranoid of that it's annoying. But ISFJs, they tend to be like very paranoid about certain things, and they like freak out, like hyperventilate. Oh my gosh, well, what if this and what if that and what if that? Relax. It's okay. It's not gonna happen. Chill. And the last thing about them, which is pretty much also one of their biggest things, is that they can be incredibly suffocating. The ISFJ is pretty much the stereotypical mother, probably right up there with the ESFJ, and it's like if you watch shows like Black Mirror episode, I think it's the Angel episode or something like that, where the daughter was being like watched by her mother everywhere she went, and even the episode in Black Mirror Black Museum, where the wife was in the guy's head and everything. Those are both SFJs, and they're just so protective, and they're so like, oh my gosh, I'm so worried because of this paranoia of what's going to happen to their child that I was just talking about. So they're like, I have to protect them like with everything. And you see this even with SJ Marlin from Finding Nemo. Like, he gets paranoid about the worst happening. Only in his case, the worst actually did happen. But that was kind of his fault. But we're not going to talk about that in this video. They can be incredibly suffocating, and then once you suffocate your children or your partner so much, they leave, or they end up telling you stuff like, I hate you, which is what Nemo pretty much said to his dad. So, yes, I finally completed the Low Key Suck series. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully, you know that if the shoe fits, wear it. If the shoe does not fit, it's all right. You can go find another shoe somewhere else. You don't have to criticize the size over here. And share this if you want with SJs. Laugh about it. Leave comments with things that you agreed with, things that you noticed, things that you could even add on or correct. Stuff like that. This is for fun. And once again, I'm going to be soon putting out the High Key Rock series, which is pretty much me doing the opposite with all of these types and highlighting all of their positive attributes, and I've already written down the notes for those as well, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, thanks for keeping up with this series. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Once again, leave your comments, like, subscribe, all of that. Done.